to be so good. Yo, how's it going? Welcome back to another awesome episode. This is episode number 3.
Yes, sir.
And for those who are new to the podcast, this podcast is called Magnify, and the purpose of this podcast is to help people who are struggling in their journey, whether it be music, whether it be arts, preaching, whatever your talent is, as long as you do it for God. We're here to bring people who has been walking the journey for quite some time and got some experience, and they're here to share their stories and help you out in your walk to kind of, get you going on a smoother journey. If you're stuck in a certain spot and you're not really sure where to go, or you're just starting off and you're not really sure how to navigate it, this podcast is for you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And we got our first in-house guest.
All right.
Yeah.
First in-house guest. And I would like to do the honors of introducing this brother, this OG of mine.
Oh, man.
Because if it wasn't for him, UHG probably would not be here right now if it wasn't for him. Because I gave up when, for those that don't know, I had another brother, my older brother, that used to rap with me. He didn't want to rap no more. I tried to do it by myself, and it didn't feel right. So I gave up, and I was like, yeah, I ain't feeling this no more, and stuff like that. Then in comes this man in my life, and was like, nah, we're going to put you back in the studio. We're going to work with you. We're going to try to put a little demo together and stuff like that. And it lit that spark back in me that was like, okay, man, just because someone not standing beside me no more doesn't mean that the vision or the purpose that God put in me has to stop based off of that person's exit.
No doubt.
Right? So this man been more than a friend, more than a brother. He was like having a second dad around, someone I can go talk to, I can vent to, and not be judged or anything. I'll be corrected, of course, as as a spiritual father or whatever you want to mentor should do to an artist or any young person that's trying to stay on the right path. Right? So this podcast means everything to me because what this man done for me. I wouldn't be sitting here, the chosen one. It wouldn't be the UHG. It wouldn't even be legendary here.
It was. I wasn't even a rapper.
You wasn't.
I wasn't even a rapper. It was his suggestion.
Yeah.
It was like,
he forced you in the booth.
Right. Because I believe you asked him, we was in the studio, because while you was doing the rapping part, I was being mentored on the engineering part, and you asked him if he could do a feature with you. And he was like, how about you just have your brother do a feature with you?
Yeah.
Which was probably a nice way of saying, nah, man, I ain't doing that.
Nah, bro. I ain't doing it.
I ain't doing that. You know what I'm saying? How about you get your brother to do a feature? I haven't even... I used to playfully rap around with my friends. Everybody used to do it at the lunchroom table. But, yeah.
And I told him, if it's corny, it's on you. It's on you. If this corny... It's on you.
My first rap. What song was that?
That was Warrior. It was Warrior. Was our first song we ever did together.
First one I heard you do in the studio was what? Me?
Yeah, that was the first one we recorded.
That's the first one we recorded.
We also tried to do a music video to that.
Yeah,
but I think the file didn't.
Some probably crashed.
Yeah.
Probably have enough memories.
Right.
But we have the one, the only. Mm-hmm. What D-Mob said, you can call me rapper, preacher, teacher, deacon, outreacher, but see me living it, then don't call me. We got the one and only. Pastor. Mm-hmm. Evangelist. Mm-hmm. Outreacher. Mm-hmm. youth pastor.
Yep.
Rapper.
Yep.
Just an all-around businessman.
Absolutely.
The one and only, my mentor, our mentor, Brother Al. Pastor Al.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Appreciate
Glad
that.
you're here, man.
Glad to be here, man.
Yes,
Glad to be here.
For those who have not heard about you, how about you just give a brief description of yourself?
All right. Well, like you said, they call me a lot of things. You know, they call me Brother Al, Pastor Al, you know, AKA 2 Cups. You know what I'm saying? 2 cups of coffee. You know, I run Face Pro, you know, because it's all from my vainglorious bearded brothers out there. But, no, but seriously, I'm just a guy, man, that gave my life to the Lord at a young age, you know. I was like 21 years old trying to figure it out. Had a girlfriend, later became my wife, and, you know, she got pregnant. You know, we started going to church, and I didn't want to be, you know, like my dad or like other male figures I had seen in the community. So, you know, I ran to God, man, and just threw everything at his feet. You know, and back then, I think it was like 1996, end of 96. What happened was, you know, back then, you know, we all had physical tapes and CDs, and when you got saved, man, you had to throw all that stuff away. So, you know, I just laid it all at the feet of Jesus, just gave up, you know, listening to music, secular music, just gave up, you know, hanging with the homies. I was just trying to figure out marriage, life. In the midst of all that, I got involved in youth group, got involved in, you know, teaching Sunday school. I got involved, became a deacon, just studied and just immersed myself in the word. And man, it was tough because, like I said, a lot of things that, you know, was considered worldly back then, you know, movies, a lot of things, man. And for to be a young Christian, it was difficult. You know, I had a couple brothers to lean on that was in a similar situation, and, you know, we just did it like that. But in all that, you know, there came like a little movement and with Christian rap or holy hip hop or, you know, CHH as they called it back then. And I just started listening and immersing myself in that, man. And it's the message, you know, a lot of those brothers back then was preaching, you know, and it was like heavy theology. It caused me to even dig into my word more, but just hearing something that I was used to because I wasn't raised in the church. So I was the type of guy that when I first became a Christian, I would come to church like when I knew praise and worship was about over with.
Right.
Because, you know, I didn't really like choirs. I mean, praise teams was kind of like new back then. And I really didn't like a lot of the music they was singing either because I was just like, why they keep singing the same words over and over and over and over again. So I would come like right as the pastor was about to preach, and, you know, and my mentor, he had told me like, man, you got to come, you know, and get in God's presence and this and that. And I was like, all right. So I would like literally force myself, you know, to conform to the way church was ran back then. So that being said, but then when I heard like Christian hip hop, man, I mean, people could say that back then it was corny. They could say whatever they want to say, but the message behind the familiar sound that I was hearing, man, really drew me, man. And I just fell in love with it. And like you said, I started working with the youth, and then I just knew that the youth was probably dealing with, even though I was older than them, I was a grown up, they probably was dealing with the same thing as far as not, you know, at church you hear one thing, but then when you and your friends and you play your video games in your neighborhood, it's a whole different sound, you know. So we began to start trying to bring in, you know, artists or preachers that could speak to the youth of where they were at. So that's how I actually started meeting Christian rappers, bringing them in, you know, to talk to the youth before I myself began to rap. Like, you know, I used to rap back in the day, but, you know, like in basements and, you know, homies, you know, having card parties and kickbacks and, you know, all that type of thing. So, and one day, a guy asked me, he's from Pittsburgh, named J.E. Gamble. You know, he said, man, when you gonna start, you know, rapping, or when you gonna start recording? And I was like, man, he's like, no, I know you can rap. And I was like, man, how do you know I could rap? You know what I'm saying? But that sparked something in me, man. And I had me and my friend Lenny Dow in Buffalo, New York. You know, I had wrote some rhymes. He started writing some rhymes. I drove like 4 hours to Pittsburgh and recorded my first song in this guy's in this house. You know, I spent the night. I think I might slept on his floor or something like that. A little air mattress. You know, it was just you know, it took it took like all night to lay that, you know. It took all night. I ain't have a hook now, so we had to make everything up. So anyway, make a long story longer, I had I came back home and I was so excited, man. And you know, my pastor, he was an old dude, you know what I'm saying, bishop, and I try to, you know, explain to him what was going on. I could tell he wasn't really feeling it, so I just left it alone. But in the meantime, I also had a call to preach, but at that time, it's like, you know, when you're in a small church, it's like you can't move from what you doing until you go find somebody to replace you.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So if I could find somebody to be the sound man, if I could find somebody, you know, go find me another deacon, you know what I mean? If I go find, you know, another youth person, then, you could be elevated or you be next up to try and preach, you know what I'm saying? But I already knew I had a word, you know what I mean, in my spirit. So what happened was I would just use, you know, my songs, you know, as like many messages, you know. It just wasn't about, like, my music, it was kind of like a little more mature. I talked about like struggling in marriage. I talked about finances, you know. I talked about trying to raise my kids, you know what I mean? And then at the same time trying to encourage, you know, the next generation. So I did that, man, for about 10 years. I probably like ministered, you know, just in rapping and different, you know, block parties and different churches and stuff like that. All the time still, you know, having a marriage, having kids, having a full-time job, you know, sometimes 2 full-time jobs. But, you know, just knowing that that's what I felt God had wanted me to do at that time and be able to release, you know, what he had put in me, you know, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You almost dipped into my questions.
Sorry.
But absolutely, man, and like if it wasn't for, like I said before, like if it wasn't for his test that he had to go through to make his testimony and to say his testimony and to make us bear witness to his testimony, like to change our lives and stuff, is like, that mess is amazing, man. But I got a couple questions for you.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? We're going to chop it up. Especially, like you said, being, and you can speak on it from both angles, as far as, you know what I mean, artist and minister, the pastor, even though I feel like music and ministry should go hand in hand. But
some people debate that.
Yeah, some people debate that and stuff. But for another time and stuff. But how do you navigate your gift with a small support system? Whether, like you said, whether it's the small church, you live in a small town, or you just financially, you just don't know where to start. Like, who do I even talk to or anything? Like, how do you navigate your gift when you know God is calling you to do something?
Okay. I would say, first thing I would say, man, is you have to know why you're doing it. You know, a lot of people have what they call shadow missions. You know what I'm saying? They say they doing something for one reason, but really the underlying reason why they doing it is for another.
Right.
So, you know, you might say, I just want to be used by God, you know. So, but now if you get called to to a youth event, and it's 7 kids, and 4 of them is toddlers. You know what I mean? Are you still just going to be used by God, or are you upset by whoever asked you to come there, and then because you thought it was going to be a bigger crowd? You know what I'm saying? So, or you don't get invited to go different places, but at the same time, you say you just want to be used by God, but in your mind, you're going to go to the nations. You know what I mean? Or so it's just like you got to settle in your heart, like, why you doing what you're doing. Like, for me, I had to settle, like, if I don't become famous, if, I don't get, like some of the biggest stages I stood on was events that, we organized. So it was just like, I just got to rap because, it was our spot. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like, I met a lot of different guys and sometimes they would say some of the more noted names at that time would be like, we be out to eat or something. Everybody wants to be a rapper. The fans want to be a rapper. But then you eat with some of the old preachers and they like, everybody want to preach. Everybody want to get behind the pulpit. So it's kind of like you can put a situation where like I want to be like, hey man, I ain't everybody. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I ain't asking you, for a platform either. But getting back to just, so like I said, you got to settle, why you doing what you do. So once you settle that, like whatever comes with that, man, you're not responsible for it. Your responsibility is to do the best you can with what you got. And that's why I always admired you guys because, out of necessity or out of resources, you just, I learn how to do it. I figure it out. I make the beat. I set up the spot. I pack up the gear. You know what I mean? Set it up. Y'all rap. Y'all do whatever y'all need to do and not worry about, money or a bunch of people, bigging you up or whatever. So that's the main key ingredient in all of that. Because if God calls you to do something, like only thing you're responsible for is just doing your best. And, being teachable and hey, if you get a few dollars, up your game, do your best, man. You gotta do your best, like no matter what it is. Everybody used to, the big buzzword back in the 90s, spirit of excellence, but excellence is different for everybody, but at the same time, like when God revealed to you, it's time to step it up, you step it up. So that being said, first, you just got to settle in your heart why you doing it. Second, you got to stand on it when nobody else stand with you. Mm-hmm. Like, my wife probably didn't understand all the time if I'm out, trying to make rhymes or at the studio or, traveling here and there, knowing, I wasn't getting paid nothing, man. I show up for gas money and sometimes they ain't had that, you know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely.
I'm spending my family money, traveling around, talking to people, making connections. So, your wife or, it could be like it's a hobby or something. Or, your pastor, like I said, my pastor really wasn't feeling it. He was, in his 60s probably at the time. And it was like, it was foolery to probably to him, you sit him there, rapping. He don't know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? So knowing I ain't had that support, like, pastor wasn't about to, throw no shine for no studio time. Or even when we was organizing events, he's like, yeah, you can have, I remember we had a Flame and Corey Red in one time, and he got up and preached. The next morning he was like, what is a flame? And who is a Corky Red? You know what I'm saying? So it's like we had to organize different things, but he like, yeah, y'all can have whoever y'all want in, but we not paying for it. So we had to figure out, how to financially come up with a plan to bring in the people that we believe that God wanted to impact our youth. So, like I said, you gotta know why you're doing it. You gotta stand on it when nobody else will stand with you, and you can't get bitter at people that don't see what God did or doing in you. Right. Everybody not gonna see it, man. Everybody, and people gonna question your motives. Like I said, they might be like, oh, you just want to stand up there because you want to be famous. Oh, you just hanging out with so and so because you think they gonna put you on, or you know this, that, and the third. So, you gotta really guard your heart, man, and every time it gets tough, you just gotta go back to that place. Like, I'm just doing this because God told me to do it.
Yeah,
and,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we did a show. I can't remember who it was for, but he called me and he was like, "Hey, we got this show we want to do with your brother on, but we ain't got nothing. Not a sound system, not a nothing." And I believe we did it on a cul-de-sac over by Central High School. I don't know if you remember that or not. I think all they had was a stage, was a little tiny platform.
Okay.
That's all he had. And I was like, I got you. Got my car loaded up with all the speakers and my sound. I had everything running out of my car. I had I had the sound system in my back seat and everything else running out of my car onto this little platform they had. And yeah, you just like knowing why you do it is key.
Yeah, because I rapped at a vacation Bible school, man, and they had a little microphone, like they held it up to the little boom box, I had a CD, and it got laser disc was dirty or something. They were looking at me like I was whack, right? I was
like, playing music off a cassette player.
I'm like, come on, but I still did it. You know what I mean? Like you said, still did it.
Yeah, I feel you knowing why you do it is key. You know what I'm saying? And if fame is your goal, which was never ours is we have a message, and I just want to share that message with you.
For sure.
It's not about whether I go on this 20 city tour or not. You know what I'm saying? It's my goal is okay. Who are the next group of people that I can impact their life?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if it wasn't for your journey in life to get you where you are, you wouldn't have been there when my brother needed you to help him, to give him that push to continue doing what he's doing, to even give me the even thought of being a gospel rapper.
Right.
I would have just been that sound guy.
Right.
Like I've been since I was 5, was the guy who controls the sound. The guy who controls the sound for his dad's church. Or he's the guy who does the sound for you, his brothers back in the day.
Right.
Like, that was me. I was the sound guy. And if it wasn't for your dedication to do what God called you to do, to come into our lives, to then give that same dedication to the next person. And I feel like that is what our calling is to give that dedication to the next person.
No doubt, man. You have to, man, because like, it's not a competition. You know what I'm saying? So when I see young guys, come in and they got so much energy, so much swag, it's like I could have been one of them old dude, older rappers, like, man, them, trying to dissect your bars, like, he don't got enough words, his rhymes, he ain't saying nothing, he just talking about, this or that, just hype. But, people got, like, give people a chance to grow, because you guys were teenagers, when we first met, and I have been saved. I mean, I already have been saved like 9 years. So, of course, even though y'all grew up in the church, but just a natural comprehension for yourself and where you are in life, people gotta not judge you. Like the Bible says, like, despise not the day of small things. The part was that y'all was willing to stand up and say something for God, on behalf of the Lord, and to be used by Him to encourage, like you said, somebody your own age, or even your own kids. Like, when y'all started having kids, just to be like, okay, my dad, that's what he about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's huge, like, man.
Yeah.
It's huge.
And like people, especially like in the church or whatever, they forget that discipleship comes in different ways. People just think the type of discipleship should be, he gets saved, okay, let me go over here, make sure he stayed here. But you forget, like, there's other ways of discipling other people and stuff like that. Like the way he was just like, you know what? I got a studio. Y'all, I see something in you. Come over here.
Mm-hmm.
Discipleship. And that discipleship trickled on us to be like, let me do the same for that next person that I see. And the disciples make disciples. But so many times we get caught up in the church version or the biblical version of discipleship, and we miss.
No, you said it right. The church
church
culture version.
Yeah, the church version of discipleship, that we forget that outside these four walls, my gift still carries. My purpose still carries. And
the great thing is, because when we met you and you started working with us, we was in two different churches.
Mm-hmm.
You had your church, we had our church, and I think it wasn't until a year later that our churches actually decided to.
No, it was about.
It might have been
5-6 years later.
Yeah, that we decided to actually partner with and become one.
Right.
With our church and your church, and you know, that leads to what you're saying, like. You know, just because, you know, we're part of two different organizations, we're a church, we're part of the same organization as God. And, you know what I'm saying, that you can still see something in somebody and take the time to work with them, even though, okay, yeah, they might not be a part of my church, but I see something in them that I can help them achieve something that they're trying to achieve.
Right.
And, you know.
But sometimes you don't even know.
Yeah.
You know what they trying to achieve. It's just a matter of, you know, planting the seed or just being around them. You know what I mean? Like your son play football. You know, he might not have dreams going to NFL. Maybe he might, but the coaches and people that work with him, you know, they just being around him and encouraging him. You know, my big thing was just to be around you, encourage you. Just to keep following after God. So if that's in music, keep following after it. If it's in, you know, production, keep following after them. Like, no matter what you do in your life, man, as a parent, you know, you got to follow after God for everything. So that was just something that we all had in common. You know, if we was all hoopers, you know, then it would have been basketball. It would have been kind of like the conduit or the factor thing that we centered around, just a common point of interest to help you, you know, just get further along in the Lord. So
yeah, absolutely. And then the next question will be, it can be both ways. How can you be bigger than where you at, or can you be bigger than where you at? Because so many times you'll hear people, whether it's pastors or you want to be a minister or whatever, they tell you, you know, sometimes you got to move. You need to leave from where you at.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You might not. You got you a big fish in a small pond.
A prophet receives no honor in his hometown.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you a big fish in a small pond. You got to go out. You got to go out here. So, like, can you be bigger and bigger as impactful where you're at?
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you, like, just keep it all the way 100. Like, the tools and resources that, you know, the young generation have now, you know, go way far beyond, you know, what we were dealing with, you know, when I was, you know, ministering back in the day. But what I would say is, you know, you have to steward everything you get you. So if you feel that in your bones that this needs to be, you know, more exposure than what it's getting. So first you gotta pray that God put people in your life that, you know, that see the vision that He give you. Because none of us could just do anything like in and of ourselves. He created us to, you know, to do it alone. So you gotta pray. You know, you guys had, you know, in-house situation where you know most of your family, you know, is already in ministry, or most of your family, you know, I mean, could play, you know, your granddad, you know, awesome musician, you know, your dad, you know, fire preacher, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like y'all had a lot of resources already around you. So But what I'll say, like, for the person that feel like they by themselves, they need to pray and seek out relationships with people that's doing the same thing and that see that God would help them understand what they trying to do. And then I would say they'll have to study, not only study, their word, but they gotta study the craft. If you're in the music business, you gotta study the music business. Like the young guys now, it's streaming. So how you gonna get your streams up? How you gonna get, you have to have quality production. Like, are you gonna do like he did, sit and learn how to do the things yourself? But everybody can't do that because you already, you kind of musically inclined. But so they'll have to seek out, counsel on how to get things done. And a lot of times you have to save, you have to go without, something that you would like to put away. It's just like anything else. You have to invest, you have to bring all your gifts and your talents, to the table. So you have to invest in yourself first. You can't be like, well, if somebody would do X, Y, Z for me, then I'll be this. Like, no, you got to show them that, I'm putting my all into this, and I just need you to, help me, push me over the top. So, and I would say, like, I believe God is a God of miracles. So I believe you can start with little or nothing, and overnight he can do what he does. But more often than not, it'd take you about 10 years to become an overnight success. You know what I'm saying? People don't realize, the hours and hours and hours that you put in, but you just have to keep it up, no matter what. And, at the end of the day, if the Lord say, well done, my good and faithful servant, it's like, hey, that's all that matters anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And like, that threw me off. Hold on.
What, my daughter laughing?
Yeah.
Whenever she in there watching, it's funny.
Man.
She's like 2 rooms away.
Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like you said, like, you have to, like, when you say, like, when you go back to the first part of asking, why am I doing this? If God called you into it, he's, whether you see it yet, he got, it's planned out. He's not going to call you and be like, oh, I need you to go to the store, but don't give you the money to get what it is that you need to get. You know what I mean? That he send you to the store to get. And stuff like that. So you might not see it now, but if you stay with it and you stay under him and you stay prayed up, everything else will eventually line up. The more you, like you say, you work on it. Don't just be like, oh, God called me to do this and then go sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's hours and stuff you put in on this. We are artists and we all been there where we done spent half the day or the whole day and some in the studio, and you just come up with one song. It's just that one song took you 2 days to do and stuff like that. So it's that dedication and to you know what I mean, to someone that's not in it, it don't seem like a lot, but it's that little bit of dedication.
Mm-hmm.
If you be faithful over many, I'll bless you with few. You know what I mean? So if you just keep
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It's reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what I mean?
No, I got
so
you.
You dedication and stuff, just stay prayed up, stay with it, and just know that God, if this is what God has for you,
Definitely.
it's what's gonna happen.
Right. And then start it. Because I've been really focused on that as I was watching the video when I was in the planning phase of starting this podcast. So like you say, I would spend hours learning the craft.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I ain't got the money to pay for it,
Right.
there's only one other option. I gotta learn it.
Right.
So spend hours watching different people's tutorials on how to start podcasts. But there was one guy that stood out, and he was like, if the only thing that's stopping you is your equipment on doing podcasts, and that's your only, I need better equipment,
right,
you will never start a podcast. Just start it. Rather, it's just your phone, using your phone camera and the microphone that's on your phone. Just start it, and then as you go, get better. And that was my thing, because every time I watch a video, that's always in the back of my head. Is okay. Well, what equipment I'm gonna use?
Right.
I got a bunch of studio microphones, but they don't match.
Right.
I don't want to go in there. We got different mic stands and different microphones. It's gonna look weird. But you just got to start, because if you're just focused on what you don't have in your life, as like support or financial things isn't there, you will never start it.
Definitely.
And this year when I did because we do the camp at First Alliance, or whatever, and this year I really made it apparent that, okay, if this is what you're doing, because most of the kids are just there because their parents told me they gotta go. But every once in a while you'll get a couple of kids that would like to pursue some form of music. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I made it very clear to them that, all right, if this is what you want to do, these are some steps. Okay. There's two ways you could do it. You can do it the money way or the broke way. Okay. Most people got to do it. Most people got to do it the broke way. And if there's things out there, because there's a plugin I actually came across that claims that they eliminate all noise. Okay. If you at home, you ain't got a studio because you can't afford studio time, so you got to do it at home. You ain't got a booth because you ain't got the money to build you a booth. Right. You know what I'm saying? You up here recording and your mom whip out the vacuum. Back in the day, you got to start over.
That's right.
That's a bad cut right there. Right. But apparently there's a plug-in that eliminates that. All they pick up is your voice. They'll take out that vacuum. And it was like she was never vacuuming while you was recording. Okay. But you got to invest in yourself. Rather, either way it goes, you got to invest. And knowing where you want to go in life, building that plan out, is going to be there. Because when times get hard, it's just a matter of time. That's what you need to fall back on.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And laying it out, at least like a 5-year plan of, okay, in 5 years, I might be here, but in 5 years, my goal is to be here. And then once you get there, okay, what's another 5-year plan? Okay, so I'm here. So if I'm here, how do I get there? And stuff like that. So it's like never being settled where you're at.
Definitely.
And stuff like that. Like, you never just get to a point where it's like, this is enough. All right, I'm cool. Because ministry don't work like that.
Definitely.
Ministry don't work like that. Ministry is done when he say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And then, even after that, you still got to go in there and sing praises. So you still ain't done. Right. You know what I mean? Because once you're done with this, you still got to go in here and robe up. It's time to join the choir. And stuff. But yeah, and then just on just your journey period, doing the music ministry and doing the church ministry, and also being the pillar, the foundation in your family's life. To try to do, you take all three. What are some things that you faced while trying to navigate all three of these gifts that God has given you, and three responsibilities that God has given you? So what are some things that you might have faced?
Because at one point, it was all at once.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming.
Yeah. Right.
And then you preach it, and then you had kids.
Definitely. I mean, Okay, so like when you walking with the Lord, man, it's like it's a couple things. Like God doesn't really exempt you from the areas of your life where you not strong at. Like, so say, when I came up, I didn't have an example as far as what to do with your finances. So I had a strong back and a mind to work. So straight out of, high school, I got a grown man job. You know what I'm saying? I started working at here in, Ohio. We got a lot of factories. So I started working at Jeep, 18 years old. My birthday was September 19th. I started working at Jeep November 1st, So with that, came money. With that, with no financial literacy, with that came, I built debt, and then when had a young family, man, we had cars, houses, house, different bills, just keep accumulating. So now I feel like, okay, God calling me to do something else, but I don't accumulate it, this debt. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I put myself in a position that I was tied to something that I didn't feel like, God called me to do. Mm-hmm. So the challenge was to be able to shake that and to be able to follow God. And all the time, I didn't make the right decision. So, wind up being in a situation where, I didn't steward my money correctly, and I wound up being in foreclosure. You know what I'm saying? So I had to move out the house. So that's definitely failure. You know what I mean? But that was just something that weighed heavy on me because, I felt like I had let down my wife. I felt like I had let down my kids. I felt like I let down God because I'm supposed to be this example. I'm supposed to be this mighty man of God. And, but at the same time, you can't pay your bills. You know what I'm saying? Then I was praying for, well, it's a miracle for me to keep my house, try to stand and name it and claim it and all that. You know what I mean? I just came to realization that I messed up. So now it's like, what do you do after that? So, and then the other big thing for me was I had this thing in my spirit where I felt like God didn't want me to work where I was working no more. So, but I didn't have no degree. You understand? I was making with overtime and stuff around $80,000 a year. Yeah. But all I had was a high school diploma. Like I said, I already had lost my crib. I'm renting a house actually from my brother at the time. And it's like God just keep just in my spirit, like, hey, man, you gotta walk away from this. And I'm just like how? Yeah. And so at my job they had a buyout, right? They had this early buyout. I think I was working there for almost probably 15 years at the time. So they came around with a buyout. I ain't take it. The buyout was they give you $100,000. Yeah. And then and then when it was time for you to retire, you get partial retirement. So I ain't take it, but at the time, and I was team leader. I had a little radio. Yeah. Call the shots a little bit, kind of. What's your 20? You know what I'm saying? This, that, and third. So I was working third shift. I had shift premium, man. We working, 6-7 days a week, 10, 12 hours, man, was getting it. So I wind up, man, I went through this season where, say work started at 11 o'clock. I'd be up, ready to go, 9 o'clock. I got everything situated, ready to go to work. I close my eyes. Supposed to be at work at 11. I close my eyes, open my eyes, it'd be midnight. And I'm like, so I'm running to work. I get in there, everybody looking at me like, yeah, you late. So this happened 2 or 3, man. It got so bad, man, that I wind up getting suspended with no pay for 30 days.
Wow.
And in that season, it was man, I told you were supposed to take that buyout, right? And I'm just so I'm at 30 days. Then the day I was supposed to go back to work off my 30 days, and if you don't report back to work one day after suspension, you automatically get fired. So I had got the flu. like 2-3 days before us go back to work. I'm talking about sick, man. I'm talking about I couldn't even hardly get out to bed. I mean, cold sweats, everything. I probably had COVID back then. I don't know. I don't know. Well, you might want to edit that out. I don't know if you can say that without, you know what I'm saying, getting flagged. You know what I mean? So anyway, so man, I was going to work, man. I was in the parking lot. I mean, I was sweating. I was sick in the dog. I got out of my car. It was raining. I never forget this night. I said, man, Lord, if you help me through this night, and I'll do whatever you want me to do. You know, man, I coughed and hacked up, man. Everything that was in me, left it out in the parking lot, went into work, still looking like a ghost. As soon as I walk in the door, the supervisor's like, I don't care how sick you look, you're not going home tonight. I was like, it's cool, man. I'm just, I'm not asking to go home. I'm just gonna do my job. So fast forward, man, that buyout came around again. I took it, you know, left there. I went from making $30 an hour. I took a job, man, making $10 an hour. You know, people thought I was crazy. You know, I had threw everything to the studio and the business at that time. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. You know, it failed. I lost probably like between like $5,000 and $8,000 doing that. I still had some money. I paid off all my bills. I was working. Like I say, like I was working for $10 an hour, was faithful over that. Got a raise, started making more, then got put in a position where I was managing some supported living sites for adults with developmental disabilities, you know, still working at the church. Then an opportunity came, you know, for me to open up a group home for juveniles, boys, ages 8 to 18. And I've been doing that for like 10 years now, and you know, God really been blessing, and, you know, not trying to say this is why you do it, but I wind up making more than what I can make, you know, working at where I was working. Yeah. You know, it wasn't overnight, though, you know.
Absolutely.
Had to take that, you know, step back to step up, you know.
Right.
You know, you can preach that if you want to.
You can. Right there is a
Man.
Get a little nougat, you know.
That actually brought up, so
it's
the video I did a while ago was called Don't Be Complacent.
Okay.
That's what I mentioned you in. And it's crazy that you say that, because like I had a job for the past 4 years, being a contractor for FedEx.
Okay.
For the drivers, because you know, I don't know driver work for FedEx.
No, I feel you.
And I started off being a regular driver. Did that for like 6 months. And I got promoted. Did that for another 6 months. Got promoted again to a salary pay.
Okay.
I was like, cool, made it.
Right.
You know, I'm making some serious money now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I knew that this wasn't a permanent job.
Okay.
See, but I feel like just like you, we get caught up in that financial security of the job. Like, dude, this job pays really well. What do you mean, God? I gotta leave? Like, this is paying my bills, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying? I worked hard to get to this point. Like, I was pretty much second in command next to the CEO. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm making money, and you telling me now I gotta leave. But I feel like, you know what I'm saying, you sometimes would then build a hindrance for yourself by not listening to what God has to offer. What was it, Jonah that got swallowed by the whale? Jonah, because he didn't listen to God. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like you put yourself in a lot of situations that you probably would have never been in if you was just listen the first time. And because it got to that point where, like, I wasn't even seeing my daughter. And I got into a fight with her mom one day. And I was like, you know, because I'm working hard. Like, I'm working long hours. Like, I'm working literally from, it's dark when I go in, it's dark when I get off of work, doing this 6-7 days a week. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I got to the point where, for some reason, I was okay with not seeing my daughter. I was like, when she grow up, she like might be mad at me because I'm working so much that I might not spend time with her. And it got to the point where it was one night, I'm like, why am I okay with that? Like, I shouldn't be okay with the fact that she might hate me in the future because I chose work over what God is calling me to do. Which is, and that work is taking me away from what God is calling me to do, from her, and from my main responsibility, which is being a father to her and being a child of God.
Right.
Like, I'm no longer doing these things, which is the job was given me by God. Like you said, I don't have. I never went to college. You know what I'm saying? Technically, I never even graduated from high school.
Okay.
And to even be remotely having the opportunity that would take most people a master's or a bachelor's degree to even held a job of that caliber, like to put that now over everything else. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we get sidetracked because that financial stability that we now lose in focus of what it is that our main goal and objective is, which is to pursue God, raise my daughter, show her how to live faithfully through God, and that God can provide. At some point, we lose the fact that God can provide. This job is just a job.
Yeah. Like I said, like I believe, like, you know, just being a steward, because like if I had the information, you know, I'd have been able better to make decisions. You know, the thing is, we get caught up with what we think we're supposed to do when we make money. You know, you're supposed to buy a house, you're supposed to buy a car, you're supposed to, you know, it's always buy. So it's like, so the perception is, you know, you're doing well, but, you know, if they do a mass layoff, you know, for all the people that, you know, came up in manufacturing, now it's like they turned the faucet off. Now what are you gonna do?
Right.
You know, and the trick is to make you believe that you're always dependent on somebody else, but you say, you know, you're dependent on God. You know, then you just start praying like, God, you know, I just pray that, you know, sales go up and then take us back to work. You know, pray that gas prices go down and people keep buying these big SUVs. And, you know, but if I was able to, you know, do it over again, or just speaking to, you know, people, like, you got to live, you're like, man, below your means. Like, and you got to, you know, it's always, you know, a seed time and then this harvest. You got to try to put away money. Like, even as we talking about this, it's like, you know, I don't have everything masterminded, like to where I can say, you know, this is my portfolio, this is my this is my that. You know, I'm living and I'm comfortable. But it's like, for somebody coming behind, it's like, you got to put first things first. And like you said, your family. And I would take my kids to school in the morning, pick them up from school, then I was going to work. You know, they wake up, and I take them to school in the morning. You know, so that was like all week. And so what it is though, you have to recognize whatever season you in. Like your daughter, man, like, she'll understand, you know, there was a season in my life when my dad was working hard, he was doing this, but then the kids could understand, they could see like transition too. So it's like, okay, he was doing this, but then when the opportunity came for him to do something else, he chose, you know, to take another road. So, and then like for me, like I talked to my kids, like they was like 7, 8 years old, and it was like, hey, we go to McDonald's, it's like, you got $4 a piece. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever you get, that's on you. You know, they're like, like some people don't discuss their finances with their kids, or they don't discuss, you know, different things with their children. But I let my kids know, like if I can buy it and I don't want to, I don't want to buy it because I'm trying to do something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? or if I can't buy it, like when I was going through, like I said, I was making $10 an hour. It was like, I don't have it, but I'm not ashamed. Yeah. I'm just letting you know where we at. So like, you don't think that.
I'm just saying no.
He said I can't get large fries because he wants the large fries. You know what I'm saying? No, it's not like that. But I just try to keep an open dialogue with my children when they was coming up, and then me and my wife. There's a lot of things that I wanted to give her and do for her, but I couldn't. And there's a lot of things I put myself, in a financial situation. Not even because she said it. It's just because I felt like that's what a man was supposed to do. As far as taking care of his family. And then I was the type of person that, I'd rather show you, I love you. I want to get you this car. I want to get you this. Take you on this trip. I want to do this. I want to do that. Then I get home, what I'm saying? I got shut off notices on the door. And then all that good, beautiful time we had, she like, well, what you going to do? Why did we go? Because if we would have went and now we got to pay the bills. And it's like, so, it was like, on one hand, high, but then on another, you come back, now you on the low, so it's just, and then the managing the expectations of being in a church that, church culture can have you running around too. You came from a system of, you had your men's thing, you had your youth thing, you had your, you travel, you're going to go over to so-and-so's church for this. And they might live, they might be in another city, going to go to the district this, going to go to the national that. All that stuff costs money. You get there, I need 100 people to give $100, and you feeling good like, the Lord going to bless me.
Hey, I want to thank you guys for watching. If you do want to watch the full episodes, the full interview, the links are in the description below. It is playing on all the podcast channels, all the popular ones at least. Spotify, Apple, Amazon. You can check it out on there. The link for our website is in the description if you want to know more about what it is that we do and what it is that we offer. So I encourage you guys to check that out. I want to thank you guys for watching the entire video and supporting this channel. I would like to thank the Empowerment Center of Toledo, Ohio, which allowed us to utilize this room that you see here to be able to shoot our podcast, and I appreciate that very, very much. If you've never heard of the Empowerment Center, feel free to check them out. I'll leave their description as far as their website in the description below if you want to check those out. And of course, UHG, which is the music group that me and my brother are a part of. A lot of the equipment came from there, from our studio for now. But I just want to thank you guys. Stay tuned. We got more interviews coming. If you guys have questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Feel free to go to our website. You can message us. You can email us. Whatever, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever your habits are, your hobbies that you like to indulge in on your free time. Feel free to just leave us, leave a message if you want to chat. We can chat. And we just go keep going. We will keep going. We will keep doing our music. Obviously, what I'm saying, we're not going to stop doing our music, but we do appreciate you guys for tuning in to our podcast, Magnify, and I really, really appreciate that. So yeah, feel free, browse the description down below. You'll have tons of links to different websites, to our website, and different places where you can find the full length and the full episode of this podcast and all the future ones. All right, man. Y'all have a blessed day.
Oh, this is gonna be so good.